You're good till 3 a.m., right?
Maybe not that late.
Okay, 2:30. Don't worry about me. I consume media like I'm breathing air. I almost said like I'm breathing water. Wow.
Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode 32.
Everyone has things that they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can just get one more person
to join us on our Hill to Die On. Well, Nate, we made it. It's the end of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We can bid farewell to this dumpster fire of a year.
You know, I think it's funny. People make a big deal. And I think, yeah, years get worse. I wonder if years just get worse because we just keep getting older. Not because, the situation was bad this year, yes. But the situation is bad every year.
But we're more bitter.
Yeah, we just get more bitter over time, huh?
Maybe. I don't know. Categorically, this year has been not the best of years for most human beings.
Yes.
I can tell you that me personally, I'm not normally a person who likes going out and going to a lot of different places, but this year was hard on me because on top of everything else, being trapped inside a lot meant I was basically stuck with just myself. And let's face it, only having the voices in my own head to keep me company, it's not exactly the most healthy mindset to be in.
Mm.
So, we made it through the year. Things are potentially looking up. There are vaccines rumored on the horizon.
Yeah.
And some that have actually been injected into people's arms.
Yeah, people have actually gotten shots, I think. Yeah, sounds interesting.
Yep. There are already a couple in Great Britain. I think they're starting in America now. We'll see how it shapes up and whether we get any over here in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
But all I wanted to say is we made it.
Yep, we have. We have made it to the end of the year,
yeah.
Which means we get to do something fun.
We get to do something fun every week.
That's true. But now we get to look back at all the fun things we did this year.
That seems reasonable.
I like doing it that way.
Yeah. So we thought we would do a year in review kind of 2020 wrap up like we did last year. But since we've actually now had a full year under our belts, we now get to have a lot of reflection on how this year's gone for our show and for My Hill to Die On as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked and came up with a couple of categories of things that we want to talk about, our favorites from the year. One of the things that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about games that we've played. We're going to talk about movies we've watched, TV shows we've watched, music that we've listened to, events that we've participated in, new things, favorite drinks that we've had on the show, and our favorite main media from the show. I am very intrigued to see what some of your picks are for this year.
Yeah, me too. Or vice versa. Because I know what my picks are.
Oh, really? Oh, do you?
I'm not intrigued to find out what my picks are. I know what they are. All right, well, why don't you start us off with the games played?
Okay.
Because I think you will have more to say on this topic than me, probably.
See, for me, there was a wide selection of games that I could have picked from.
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking about all the different games that I've played over the past year. But to be fair, only one could possibly take the place on the top in my heart.
Okay. Final Fantasy 27.
Close but no cigar. It's actually Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, yes, of course. Right.
As I said at the beginning of the year, I had been waiting for Final Fantasy VII Remake for a long time.
A long time, yes.
A long time, and I talked about it occasionally. I think it's actually the most mentioned game that we have on the show.
Mm-hmm. It is the most mentioned game.
So yes, this is definitely my favorite from the year. It was a great game. I loved playing it. It was exactly what I hoped for. As we were approaching the game coming out, I was both excited and scared at the same time because Final Fantasy VII held a very special place in my heart from when I got to play it when I was in my early teens. So had a very special place in my heart. And so I was afraid that they were going to mess it up in some way, but they didn't. They did fantastic. They did not stick exactly to the way that the story played out in the original game. They did change some things, but it was still amazing what they did with it. And I was so happy with everything they did. They found a balance between having that turn-based RPG that the original one was and adding in like an active battle system. It wasn't turn-based anymore, but as time passed, your opponents were attacking you and you had to react. And the battle system was very well built, and everything they did, all the choices that they made, I was super happy with. This all being said, there were other ones that were really good, but Final Fantasy VII Remake just has to take number one.
It makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, how many more times can I mention it? I think next year I'm going to have to pick a new game to mention constantly.
Well, if you just keep playing it, I guess you could keep picking it.
Yeah.
It'll be like your Skeletor pick.
No, next year I'll have to pick me picking this game.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That's how it becomes the Skeletor pick.
Right, exactly.
No, next time I have to make sure that I talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2.
Oh, right. Right, exactly.
Although I don't know when that's actually going to come out.
Right, will it come out by next year?
I doubt it. But you know, there's rumors that Final Fantasy XIV will have an expansion pack again next year.
Oh, okay. That's the MMORPG?
That's the MMORPG. You know, there's Final Fantasy 16 that should be somewhere around the River Bend. There's already been some trailers for that, but we don't know when. My guess, at least another 2 to 3 years.
Mm.
But, you know, I'm a cynic. On that note, why don't you tell me about your favorite game that you've played this year?
Well, of course, my favorite game that I played this year is Disco Zoo. You know, one of the only games I play ever. And mostly because my daughters reminded me of it again this year. I played it a lot when one of my daughters was young. I'm not even sure which one now. So, like young as in like a baby, and I had to hold her in my arms. And while I was holding her in my arms, putting her to sleep, I would play this game just because it was something to do.
And it was something that you could play with one hand?
Yes. Especially with my teeny phones back then. So that's why it must have been, it's probably not my youngest daughter, it's probably a daughter before that. So I think I've had this game for a while and haven't played it in a while. And then my daughter reminded me of it because they were playing it. I like this game because it has the mix of earning digital assets, you know, earning digital treasures, treasures in heaven things, as well as logic puzzles that I like. It has the perfect mix for me. And this company, Nimblebit, that makes this game, has a few other games that are similar in terms of logic and mixing, earning digital coins. But this one has the best mix for me. I've tried the other ones and they're fun. I keep thinking I am close to rewinding a second time. But I think really I'm not. I think it's going to take me another few months, especially if I want to get all of the diamond trophies. I'm getting closer, but the last bunch of diamond trophies are harder because not all my work is pouring into getting them. All my work is pouring into getting the moon coins, which earn the diamond trophies for the Mars animals, because you have to have moon coins to get the Mars animals. So my work is going there, which means that not all of my work is going to completing all of the other. So I'm going diamond trophies in Mars, which requires a lot more work than getting diamond trophies for the Earth animals. Yeah, it sounded very exciting, right? I'm sure.
No, it's more along the lines of I'm just thinking, yeah, getting the Mars animals. They're Mars animals now?
In this game, there are, what is it? The Mars Masset and the Mars Rock. The Mars Rock is an animal.
The Mars Rock?
The Mars Mutt, like a marmot.
The Marsupial?
No, they don't have that. That would have been good. They have a Mars Rover is an animal. The Martian, of course, is an animal. And the Mars Mallow, like a marshmallow, is the mythical animal. Yeah, they're all pretty silly animals. They are hard to get because you have to earn a lot of moon coins, which then you spend moon coins to get the Mars animals. So anyway, it adds up quickly. And last time, before I did the rewind, I did not earn all the diamond trophies in the Mars animals. And I figure this time I'll at least go for it. I don't know if I'll get there because, again, it requires so many coins. It's more fun resetting and doing the basic levels again in reality.
I get it.
Anyway, Disco Zoo.
Disco Zoo.
I've spoken about it more than it probably deserves on this podcast. But anyway, it's fun.
We'll have to introduce you to a new game next year.
Well, I am considering getting Apple Arcade, so I might have at least played more than one game in 2021.
Well, I mean, you have a Switch.
Yes. I didn't even consider those games. I'm still sticking with Disco Zoo.
You do realize that I just sit with my face in my palm.
I'm picking my mobile game over my platform games that I spent way more money on.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm just surprised it wasn't Overcooked 2.
Overcooked 2 is a great game. And actually, I think I bought it in January of 2020 because my daughter was sick. And I said, oh, we should do something. So I bought Overcooked 2. And that really worked for that day. And it was fun playing with just my oldest daughter. It worked pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Overcooked requires multiple players, basically.
Yeah.
You can't really not play it without multiple players. But when I play with all three of my daughters, it becomes a little bit crazy. Partly because they're just running around doing funny things, which is still pretty funny, but we don't get the levels done. And I think the problem with Overcooked is it causes a lot of stress. It's a lot of stress, especially when you're really trying to get the levels. The stress level's pretty high. So I enjoy it, but you have to take it in spurts because of the amount of stress.
I get it. That's how I deal with a lot of multiplayer games, is understanding that it's going to come with stress.
Mm-hmm. That one and Mario Kart is probably my favorite Switch games right now. But I haven't played some of the other popular Switch games. So
yeah, you still haven't even played Zelda.
Yeah, I haven't played Zelda, so I'm grading on a curve here, a pretty high curve.
You haven't played Animal Crossing?
No, or Stardew Valley or anything.
We'll get you there one day. Probably by the time that I'm playing on a PlayStation 7.
Yeah, exactly. About that time. Well, we decided not to do a new movies we watched in the theater because I don't think I even watched a new movie in the theater.
The closest I have is actually it's going to be the movie that I'm going to pick because it's technically I saw it after our last year wrap up, so I'm going to count it as part of this year.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was in a theater before the theaters shut down.
Go ahead.
I am going to say a movie that we're actually going to talk about later in a different episode, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I thought this was a wonderful movie. It is the story of Mr. Rogers, but it's not really the story of Mr. Rogers. It's the story of there was a man who was writing an article about Mr. Rogers, and it's actually more focused on him. He is the main character of the story, and a lot of the story is how his life was influenced by Mr. Rogers and the experience of getting to know him. I just loved this movie because it was just one of those movies that makes you regain some hope in humanity. It fills you with so much joy just watching it. And I look forward to the episode where we get to talk about this one.
Good.
There's a lot more that can be said, but the number one thing I will say is this. I walked out of that movie, and one of the main things in my mind was, I hope that one day, people can look at me and look at my life and regard me, and I hope that people could regard the way I live my life and my actions with at least a shadow of the esteem that Mr. Rogers has, because of the way that he lives his life as such a person above reproach, of such a wonderful and loving man. I hope that that's something that somebody would be able to describe me as one day. And that's the sort of thing that I was thinking of as I walked out of that theater.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it. It was a part of my growing up, so.
Yes. So I am looking forward to having you watch it.
Sounds good to me.
Now, what movie would you say from a movie that you've watched this year?
In looking through the movies that I've watched, outside of for the podcast, I haven't watched anything that wowed me, unfortunately. I was kind of hoping in the time we had since planning this episode that I will have watched something that wowed me. I was kind of looking out for something, but there's a few movies that were decent. One of them being a Charlize Theron movie called The Old Guard, which plays with people who show immortality, who act immortal, But that's an interesting thought exercise. It's something I like. I like movies to challenge me like that, to think about what would it mean if you have people who live forever, who heal quickly, things like that. Kind of a fun thing. It was a well done movie. It just didn't take it the next step. And I think one of the interesting things about this movie is that it looks like they'll have some sequels, which sounds fun. So I'm kind of curious as to where they're going to go. Another fun movie that I saw on streaming this year was Shazam. It's a DC movie, which I was going in thinking, oh, this is a DC movie.
Yeah, that's the correct stance.
But my expectations being as low as they were, it ended at a better than mediocre movie, which was a win. I think that's the thing, is that I was like, oh, this is going to be worse than mediocre. And then the movie ended and it was better than mediocre. And I was like, wow, okay, that's surprising. So that's not a bad one. And then I've got 2 podcast movies that we watched this year that definitely are one of the better ones of the movies that I watched, which are Meet the Robinsons is probably second. I did enjoy it because it's just full of humor. And then I think probably my favorite is Weathering with You of the movies that I watched this year. So I definitely enjoyed the animation and the world that movie put forth.
Well, I'm glad that I could have brought that into your life then.
Yep. So, of course, Ryan provided me the best movies this year. So we should take all of our recommendations from Ryan.
That's how it works, right?
Yep. Weathering with You. If you haven't gone back to hear that episode, you should go back and hear that episode.
All right.
TV shows and series we watched this year.
I'm going to be basic. The Mandalorian.
See, I haven't even seen that yet. I do need to catch up on that one.
Yeah, you do. You know how I am. I like to binge. And so I'm waiting for season 2 to finish before I power through it. But I watched season 1 because I waited for it to finish before I binged it. So I really enjoyed it. It was amazing how much expression could be done through a character who you never saw his face. They really did amazing job all across the board. I am trying to think of words outside of amazing right now. I have heard that there are some contentious feelings about certain choices that were made in season 2.
Oh, okay. There's drama around the drama, you mean?
There's drama. But I am still remaining hopeful for when I get to binge the second season.
Yep, no spoilers.
Yeah, so no spoilers. No spoilers. And if you do send spoilers, you've broken my heart, and Baby Yoda will cry, or the child will cry.
Who's Baby Yoda, Ryan? Oh, sorry, just kidding. Unfortunately, I know at least that there is a Baby Yoda.
The child. That's what they've called it, but I've also heard from people who don't know how to not give out spoilers is apparently the child has a name now.
Oh,
but
okay.
Again, I don't know, because as soon as I heard that much, I covered my ears and walked away from them. Because I'm a classy man. So, your TV series.
Interestingly, TV is what I have watched, and I have found a lot of good TV this year. And that has been surprising to me, actually, that is where I have found some things. And I have found a few good nonfiction stuff first, which surprised me. I watched the Imagineering series on Disney Plus before I canceled. That was quite fun. And I watched The Last Dance on Netflix, which was the show about the Bulls. And that was quite fun. And The Last Dance was interesting to me because I had grown up hearing about it on the fringes and never really paying attention. So watching that and filling in the gaps for me was kind of nice. Now I actually know what happened. I'm not sure I ever really liked the Bulls in general because of the fact that they kept winning, but I never really had a good favorite basketball team. It's just like, oh man, they're the team on top. I don't think I should be rooting for them.
I lived in Chicago at the time, so, I rooted for them.
Of course. Makes sense to me. Then there was a lot of great Star Trek this year. Discovery was excellent, is being still excellent right now. So that is one of my favorites. My second favorite show, only by a nose did the first one win out, which speaks to the level of this show, is Ted Lasso. It's my second favorite series this year on Apple TV Plus, which was an amazing show and is definitely going to be something we're going to be talking about coming up on My Hill to Die On, because that is a hill I am willing to die on. Ted Lasso, definitely amazing show. So I'm going to have Ryan watch that because he hasn't yet.
I will wait to watch it then. if we're going to do it on a hill.
Yes, definitely we're going to do it on a hill. And then my favorite series for this year is Picard. That played all the right notes.
I completely forgot that was this year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You've seen all 7 seasons of Star Trek, and you've seen Deep Space Nine, and you've seen all of this Star Trek. Now you can watch Picard, and it just, it plays, it does everything because it pays off all of that work. You've done all the work of watching all Star Trek. Now you can watch Picard. I feel bad for people who have watched Picard as their first Star Treks and be like, what does all this mean? And maybe it makes sense to them, but really you have to watch the whole Star Trek canon up to that point.
I feel like you could understand a decent amount, but you lose out on so much.
Right.
By not knowing the background information.
Do they even introduce Will and Deanna when he's getting there? Like, I don't even know if they introduced them. They just know that he's their deep friends.
Yeah, you're right. I think they at least assume certain things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and you'll pick it up and you'll learn their name eventually, but it's not like there's an introduction anywhere. You know there's a humongous history, but of course, if you know the humongous history, then it just helps a lot. So, Picard, great series, but again, I feel like it's fan service for all those people who've watched Star Trek their whole lives.
I probably would have picked that too if I had remembered that that was this year. Both are great shows.
Event.
All right. So this one was hard for me because I realized something.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done anything.
I picked this one because again, I was fearing that you have forgotten that it happened this calendar year, but maybe I'll pick for you the time we went to go see Brent Spiner and Jonathan Frakes.
That was this year?
That was this year.
Oh my gosh. Again. I will say that. I will say this right now. So I was editing one of the previous episodes earlier today, and I apparently had said at some point during the episode, I cannot believe that this year has lasted as long as it has because it feels like it's always been 2020 at this point. It's just been so long of a 2020.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about our visit, looking back on it from this lens, looking back on it 8 months out or 10 months out from the time we visited them and talked about it on the podcast, was that we had made the comment, I think we had made the comment on the podcast, but I remember it happening while we were there, that they were like, no shaking hands for fear of the flu. This being
yes.
The end of February. And oh man, if the flu was our only fear right now, that would be great.
Yes, and they were saying flu, but we all knew they meant corona.
I don't even think we knew that at the time. That's the thing. I think
it was late February. It had gotten out.
No, we saw them in early February. Corona was far away still.
It was starting to get out, but I think everybody was still convinced that it wasn't going to be a big deal. I completely blanked that was this year.
Yeah, I figured. I was going to, again, surprise you with that one, but what would you have picked otherwise, Ryan? Do you want to share or no now?
No, I actually had nothing. I had nothing. I have a document that I am working from that has all of these categories, and then in event, it just says question mark. Because I did nothing after COVID shut down. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. I didn't go and see people. I became the recluse of all recluses.
I think one of the interesting things is we had a planned tech conference that was supposed to happen just as everything came crashing down, early April. Well, I guess it was a little later than everything crashing down, but still, everything was crashing down for sure. And it was the height of panic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we had like 100 cases in Tokyo and we were panicked. I think we probably could have had a conference, but it all came crashing down, and we ended up pivoting to an online conference fairly quickly and easily, actually. I was surprised.
And I think that it's probably for the best that we did pivot like that, because if nothing else, think of the optics.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I'm going to say meeting all the Star Trek people was my favorite event.
This year.
So, Jonathan Frakes, Brent Spiner.
It was good stuff.
Yeah, that was great.
We didn't have to wear masks there, too.
Those were the days.
That was quite the event.
Yep, it was. All right.
What's the next category?
Next category, I believe, was music.
Music. Oh, yes, this is an interesting one.
So you said you did your music in review from iTunes?
Yes, I did. Actually, I did Federico Vitici's Wrapped shortcut.
Oh.
Apple Music Wrapped is the one that I actually did, which is similar. It's like Replay. It looks through all the music you've played in Apple Music. So it doesn't look at anything you have in your library that wasn't garnered from Apple Music.
Ah.
But when I did it, I wanted to look at new music anyway. So I think the one I'm going to pick is Gillian Edwards. She was a new artist I've learned about this year. I learned about her on my Andrew Osenga podcast called The Pivot, which is a great podcast. He interviews a lot of Christian artists that I listen to. And that podcast, I've learned very, very interesting things and have discovered great musicians through his podcast. And one of them is Gillian Edwards. And they talked specifically about her new album on that podcast. And her new album is called Meadow. And she's got a great song on there called Trusted. And I really liked that song. And I've been listening to that every once in a while here and there. So I've been enjoying it.
This is where you can be trusted. This is where you know the way. This is the part where you carry me. And I bury my face deep into your shoulder. And I just need to get closer. You've already won my war. And I'm the one you're fighting for. This is where you can be trusted.
That is a lot more informed than mine was. I don't think I've really discovered new artists this year. I have listened to more of what I have in the past. So what I did was I went into the music replay from Apple and actually took a look at my most played songs and things like that. I can't really pick which one I would put at the top of my list for this year. I'm going to just talk quickly about each of them. So, first of all is The Cog is Dead, which is a very interesting group. They hit a bunch of different genres, but all of their music has a theme behind it, and it is steampunk. So it is a steampunk themed band, which is very interesting. I like how all their songs tend to have a bit of a narrative around them. And they're just so catchy and upbeat that I just really like them. Another more interesting one that I've listened to this year was Ailstorm. Ailstorm is a, how to put this, a heavy metal pirate band. I know what this is beginning to sound like. They are a Scottish band who are a heavy metal band that basically sing nothing but pirate-themed songs. Yeah, I know. And then after that, I listened to a lot of game soundtracks. And then a artist called Montaigne. Then The Deer Hunter. Sufjan Stevens. Tom Waits. All of those are music that I've listened to for a while. But yeah, I thought it was a very interesting year because of those first two were more of themed music than anything else than I have in the past couple of years. But I really liked what they did. By the way, one of those soundtracks was a sea shanty album where it was just a bunch of sea shanties. I don't know why. So those were the big ones from this year.
Actually, one of the ones, it's the third on my Wrapped, it's called On the Nature of Daylight, and it's the song that's played heavily in the movie Arrival. It's featured heavily in that movie, and it's just a great instrumental thing to listen to.
Oh, yeah. The funny thing is, all these bands, when I lump game soundtracks together, that is music from at least 20 or 30 different games, simply because that is where a lot of my music comes from. Well, not a lot, because as you can see, a lot of my music comes from a bunch of random places too. But I had one soundtrack that was just music from Final Fantasy XIV, some music that was from the sea shanties were from Assassin's Creed. Actually, I will say a great album that I listened to so many times this year was a album called Final Fantasy VI Balance and Ruin, because what they did was they took the entire soundtrack from Final Fantasy VI and basically a bunch of artists redid those songs. I've told you previously about Final Fantasy VI, and one of the scenes that I talked about was the opera scene, where they actually have an entire opera play out. Well, not an entire opera, but you know what I mean. They have the opera play out using bit music in the game. Well, in the album, what they do is they take that same song, the same tune that they do in the bit music, and revamp it and turn it into a whole production. One of the songs that I really enjoyed was that song redone as somewhere between a full opera and a Queen style song. It was just beautiful. And I will leave my music there before I talk about another band or another. I listen to a lot of music and a lot of random music.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. I had one of the ones that was hard was I have a favorite artist who released a whole lot of singles this year. Because they were all in singles, it was hard for me to play them all as a group. I struggled with that one. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, J.J. Heller.
I actually have a couple of playlists on my computer that I will just regularly update that way.
Yeah, I actually did end up putting them in a playlist, but I haven't listened to it enough yet to make any final judgments. I like it in general, but nothing has stood out yet as a favorite. I think I need to put it on shuffle more often so that I listen to all of them instead of listening to them in order. Anyway, new thing. This was a little tougher this year, I think.
New thing. What's your favorite new thing? Well, I have two.
Okay.
Because I'm cheating. The first thing that I would say is I have a new apartment.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I moved into a new apartment this past year. It's a good fit for me. It's really close to work. So when I wake up and it's 10 minutes before I'm supposed to be at work, I can still make it.
It is a benefit, yes. Could potentially be a curse, too.
Definitely is a curse, because there have been a number of days where I've woken up and stared at my phone going, I can wait 5 more minutes. I can make it. I can still make it. And there are some days where I've said that and I was wrong. But it's very nice having a full-sized American oven in a apartment in Japan is amazing and is something that you don't normally get anywhere. Having a washer and a dryer. Whew. I'm living the high life here.
Yeah, and a decent-sized kitchen.
And a decent-sized kitchen. One that has enough cabinetry that I'm not worried about stacking things in awkward positions. Yeah, I am spoiled. That's what it comes down to. I am spoiled.
What's the second thing?
The second thing, I joked about this last week, but I'm still going to say it. I got a new pillow. I ordered a fancy pillow on Amazon about a month and a half, 2 months ago. It's somewhere between a gel and memory foam. I don't even know what company it's bought through, aside from amazon.co.jp. But it is a wonderful pillow. It is the best pillow I have had my entire life.
You spend at least a quarter of your life on a pillow.
Yeah, and it's just the fact that I have always roughed it with some really crappy pillows. Simply because I tell myself, oh, it's just a pillow. I shouldn't spend a whole lot of money on it. But this pillow has been so fantastic, which is probably also why I have not wanted to get out of bed a couple of days.
With it being gel, is it cooler during the summer?
I think it feels normal. I don't feel like it's cool. I don't feel like it's a cold pillow. It just doesn't heat up, because normally memory foam can hold your heat so well that it feels like you're roasting. I feel like this doesn't do that. It's not cold to the touch, but it doesn't just absorb your heat and keep it in.
Interesting.
But yeah, I have found that this is been a great pillow for me. Apparently, it is made by somebody called True Moon, or that might be the name of the pillow.
Yeah, I think the brand is Tobest. Tubest.
It's Two Best.
Luckily, they have the Japanese pronunciation right next to it. Even though they write it in English, which could be Tobest. But with the Japanese, it looks like Tubest.
Yeah, so all that to say, this has been a great pillow, and I am super happy with it.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I have a new apartment and a new pillow. What more could a person need in life?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to pick a surprising one to me. I did not think that this was going to be a favorite item.
And it's a pillow.
Well, no. No, we did a lot of online ordering, but I guess this one we actually went to a store and purchased. Probably this must have been in May. But in May, when we realized that distance learning was not going away, we were going to be in distance learning for a while, so it might have been as early as April, we decided to go to the furniture store and pick up a standing desk. And for the rest of distance learning, my wife used it in the living room as her teaching station, which worked really well for that. But then when distance learning ended and we did our whole home reorganization during the summer, it became my desk on the second floor. And I was like, I'll try this standing desk thing. I think it'll be okay. Because actually, I had a nice computer desk chair that I really liked. I liked sitting at it. It was a nice soft chair. It fit nicely. But the standing desk thing is pretty nice. In fact, I feel like the chair kind of slowed me down. Not having to sit down got me to the desk faster and got me away from the desk faster. So I appreciated that. And since really my computer at home is not something I'm sitting at constantly, it's like drive-by usage, right? I type a few commands in and then go away, then do other things, come back, type a few more commands in, go away, come back. That's the kind of usage I have at home on my computer. I generally don't sit at it and work. Maybe I'm working on this one thing quickly, then working on this one thing quickly. So since that's my usage at home, the standing desk has actually helped out, I think, because I'm not having to sit down, pull myself in, do anything like that. I just walk up, type a few things in, and then go and do something else or whatever. So I actually have enjoyed that, and I was very surprised. I mean, there have been a few times where I will sit down and program something, and when I do that, I just lower it to the sitting height, sit on a folding chair, work on that work, and then raise it up again. So I've been very surprised at how useful it has been having a standing desk, and I wouldn't have thought it. My wife is always like, oh, you should try a standing desk. And I was like, nah, do I really need to? But it's been very nice. So I've much enjoyed it. And we got the one in Nitori. Nitori is a furniture store here in Japan. And the benefit to the Nitori one I liked was that it is not electrically driven. It is hand crank operated. So one of the things I was fearing was that the hand crank operation would prevent me from moving it too often, which is probably true. But at the same time, I know when I'm going to work, when I'm going to do a long-term programming thing, and it's not that often, and I know when it's coming, so I could just adjust it for that. And I probably will do some of that over Christmas break, so I'll just bring it down. But most of the time, I'm not. So most of the time, it stays up, and I think that's perfect. I like that it's hand crank because I'll never have an electrical motor that I have to worry about or plug in or anything like that. So, and it has a very nice cable tray in the back that I can hide all my cables away in, which is quite nice. My wife really likes that feature.
You having a lot of cables?
I do. I have a lot of things.
Seeing your desk at work, I would never believe that.
My desk at home is much cleaner because it has to be in the room with my wife's things. My desk at school is a mess. These two next topics are now review topics. Favorite drink from the show and favorite main media from the show.
I have to say that for me, my favorite drink of the year was the Coke Orange Vanilla.
That was a very good. That was close on my list.
What did you land on?
I am picking Lemon Peel CC Lemon.
Okay.
From episode 16.
Yeah.
Both of them are very good. In fact, you could sway me to Coke Orange Vanilla. The problem I have is I have very bad memory of which. I remember CC Lemon being very good. I remember Coke Orange Vanilla being very good.
Yeah, and I remember Cocoa Orange Vanilla being very good, and for me, the lemon peel CC lemon was good, but only so good as a regular CC lemon was.
I thought it was a little bit above because I thought it was a little bit more sour. Now, again, my memory can be failing me, but
Yeah, it was a bit more sour, but for me, that wasn't enough to set it apart from CC lemon in general.
yeah. And I'm wondering what I said on the episode now, too. I listened to a little bit of it again, but I didn't listen to all of it again, so I didn't have enough time.
I think for me, Coke Orange Vanilla is the one that wins out hands down for me.
Mm-hmm. It was a good one.
Yep. Well, for me, one of my favorite main medias would have to be the Aleph Extraction.
Yep. That's the one that I picked that was new to both of us. Of course, I don't think there was any other contenders, but it did run away with the prize.
Yeah. For me, everything that I wrote down this year as a favorite media were the books.
Oh, you're right. Me too. Mm-hmm. All the ones I wrote down were the books.
I enjoyed the movies that we watched. I enjoyed the TV shows that we watched. But I think the things that really impacted me, perhaps because I spend more time with them, are the books.
Yeah.
If Star Trek had a 20-hour long book that I read, then, maybe that would be as impactful.
Well, Discovery is, like a 20-hour season. But anyway, if you would watch it. Sorry. Anyway.
I'm waiting for it to finish, as we've talked about.
Sounds fine.
But yeah, everything I wrote down were books, because those were my favorite main medias of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what followed Aleph Extraction for you then?
So Aleph Extraction, I had Closed and Common Orbit, and because it was also in the same year, Long Way to the Small Angry Planet.
Yep, it happened this year too. We read them both in the same year. It was Story of Your Life behind that one?
Story of Your Life. Oh yeah, that was this year. That was in March. Again, I don't know how long this year was. Story of Your Life, I would say, would be behind those.
Yeah.
I thought it was good, but among those, the ones I just listed, it would be in a solid fourth place. I'm not sure who takes number one, though. I would say it would be between Aleph Extraction and Closed and Common Orbit. Long Way to a Small Angry Planet was good, but I thought Closed and Common Orbit was better.
Yeah, me too. I really liked reading that book again. I think it's my favorite one, but that is a little bit unfair because it is one of the ones that I picked. But I think that's my favorite main media.
Yeah. So for me, it would either be Aleph Extraction or Closed and Common Orbit. Both of which are good for two very different reasons because they're differently styled books. All right,
so mine.
I mean, I can say more, but I'll let you get a word in before we talk more.
I think my third place would be Mort. That was a fun book. Yeah. A lot of good humor in that one.
I'm glad you enjoyed that one.
But I am also having a hard time deciding first. It would have to be either Aleph Extraction or Mistborn, the book we're going to talk about today. And I wonder if I have a little bit of bias toward Mistborn because I just read it. But I don't think so. I think all my reasons are solid, and we'll talk about them soon enough, so I will leave it there. But
it is a fantastic book. I wouldn't have suggested it otherwise.
Yeah, I don't think, unfortunately, in looking at the other books we read, I mean, and this doesn't have to be just main media books. We could have picked other ones, but I do think the books stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Man Who Was Thursday was fun, but it's not going to be a favorite book, I think. Emperor's Soul was good.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. And compared to Mort, it might actually be third. They were both very good. Yeah. I'm very pleased we read this many books, actually, on the podcast.
I'm beginning to think we should read books more often based on how we're reacting to our books.
It's true. Although I'm still suffering catching up on my podcasts after listening to Mistborn. That really put a dent in my podcast listening.
I do have to apologize. I warned you that several of my books are long.
Well, and that's fine. I mean, and I had even started it well ahead of time. I had started it well ahead of time and was keeping up with my podcast and listening to the story at the same time. And then when I realized that we were 2 weeks away and I still had 16 hours to go, I'm like, ooh, I got to start moving. And so then I put all the podcasts to the side and listened to the book, which was not hard because it was a lot of fun. But now I'm still digging myself out of some podcast holes. I was very pleased to listen to these books, and I do think, you should listen to more books.
I think that is a good goal to have for next year, is maybe have a few more books. Nate, are you a mite parched?
I am thirsty, Ryan. I probably should have brought water with me to the podcast because I've been thirsty for a little while.
Yeah, well, it's been really dry this winter, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, on that note, we were given a gift by our friend and guest of 2 episodes ago, Scott. He provided us with a couple of interesting flavored drinks.
Mm-hmm.
So this first one, I believe, is in the same vein as the Premier Grape that we had way back when.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So instead of Premier Grape, we have a Premier Peach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks good to me. I like peach drinks, so I'm actually kind of excited about this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. The last time I had a good peach drink was I got some peach juice from a farm directly, and it was really good. So, yeah, that is some sediment.
Yeah, actually, I was just looking at it. There's a bit of sediment on this one. That's always kind of exciting, though, actually.
It's very interesting to see that sediment and also go, okay.
There's real things in this drink.
There's real things in this drink. It's not just 1% fruit juice with the power of 40 lemons.
No, this is 13% juice.
Yeah.
But as with the other previous premium drink, it is a small bottle. 380 milliliters. But, oh well, that's what you get for premium drinks.
Yeah. You know, you pay extra for less, and that's what makes it premium.
Exactly fair. Yeah, that is what makes it premium. That is how it works.
All right. So shall we try it?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Ooh, definitely. Shouldn't have shaken it quite so much.
Yeah, me too.
A little overflow on the foam there.
I caught it before it overflowed.
I just caught most of it with my mouth, but the rest of it I got with the tissue here. Oh, we're good. No spillage. That's good. No spilling on the podcast computer. That is a no-no.
No spilling on electronics in general.
Very strong smell.
Mm-hmm.
Very rich taste.
Oh, yeah. I know it's 13% juice, but it tastes like real juice.
Yeah, it's good.
I would buy this again.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
By the way, can I change my my choice of favorite drink now?
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm really considering making this the winner above the
Coke?
Above the Coke Orange.
Yeah, you know.
This is really good.
This is really good. But then you can't pick it next year.
This is in our year-end episode, so I didn't think it would be eligible for next year.
That's true. Mm-hmm. You're probably right.
So since it won't be eligible for next year, I'm picking this one for this year.
That's right, because I picked Mistborn this year, so yeah, that means I can't pick it next year.
You are right, unless we read book 2.
Wow, this is good.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm going to save some so I don't drink it all right now.
Wow, that is very good. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
That's rating very high on the scale. Wow. Yeah, 9 or 10 on that guy.
Whew. Yeah, it's best drink of the year for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That is very good. Yeah, if you're in Japan, get some Fanta Premium Peach. Go find that at a store near you because that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Ryan, what else did you bring?
In addition, I brought another Kit Kat. This time it seemed like a more reasonable flavor, shall I say?
I hope so. Mm-hmm.
This one is nuts and cranberries.
Although I got to ask you, how can they call it Kit Kat when it doesn't come with two bars and a pack next to each other?
Maybe it's just a kit?
I think it is. I think it's just a kit. But if it's a kit, it should have the red glowy light going back and forth. Sorry, just kidding.
Or we'll just call it a meal kit.
Meal kit. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, so what's the flavor?
This one is nuts and cranberries. So it is very small. It is very dainty.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of it is basically embedded dried nuts and cranberries.
Yeah, it looks good.
It looks very good. So
at least it's not the weird goldy color that the sparkling wine was. The color was weird in the first place.
Oh my gosh, that was really weird. So I'm going to give this a shot.
Yeah, let's see. I think the flavor is a little bit of an afterthought.
Well, I think it's because it's not really a flavoring. They just embedded the actual nuts and cranberries into the chocolate.
Mm-hmm. It tastes good. I mean, it tastes like a Kit Kat, and I do taste the cranberry a little bit.
Mine, I tasted the cranberry a lot.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Because it's using the actual fruit on there. Maybe in the distribution of the fruit and whether or not you hit one.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what it is. Because sometimes I hit one and sometimes I didn't, I think. And the cranberry is good flavor. It's not a bad flavor, too, when I do get it.
Mm-hmm. I think this is good.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that for the cost of what a normal pack costs and the size of the Kit Kat that is provided here, maybe not worth it, but it's good. It's really good.
Yeah.
So I'd say that both the drink and the snack have been actually really good today. But yeah, it's just the fact that the Kit Kat itself is about the size of my pinky.
Yeah, it's not a very long Kit Kat.
No.
Well, I think what I was thinking, though, is if the Kit Kat is good, it's not wow. I think the drink is a little bit more wow.
Oh, yeah, the drink is a wow. I'm just saying that compared to the atrocity we ate last week.
Yes, compared to that. And the recently poured drinks, too.
It's just been, hey, these things are both good. We can have good things on our podcast.
Sometimes we do.
The real danger is I'm going to reach the bottom of my drink.
I know. That's what I'm afraid of, too. I'm getting pretty close. Sadness. The great sadness.
You know, if I run to Scott's apartment, do you think he'll have more of these for me?
Probably not, no.
'Tis a shame. So, I had you read a book this week.
Mm-hmm. Well, I read it for over the past 3 weeks, I guess.
Well, here's the thing, is I have been planning on having you read this book since we started the podcast. I knew I was going to get to having you read this eventually, but I waited because I wanted to be sure that you were going to really get into this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not a short book, and it's definitely going to be an investment in the long term because it is a series. But I wanted to be sure that you would like it before I sent you down this path.
Mm-hmm.
I also, in getting you ready for this, did introduce you to this author through another book, which was
Emperor's Soul.
The Emperor's Soul, yes. So, for those of you who haven't figured it out yet, I had Nate read a book called Mistborn, The Final Empire, or in some circles it's just called Mistborn, which is the first book of the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. So, as we are going to go full into spoiler mode, I will say right now, for those of you who have not read this book, I command you. I don't ask you today. I command. I beg. I plead. Stop here. Read the book for yourself. It is a fantastic book, and you need to read this for yourself. But if you have already read it, and it's just been so long that you can't remember, I'll provide you a short summary that will cover part of the story, but do remember that this is an epic fantasy. I am not going to cover everything that happens in the story in a summary. So please, once again, read the book. So the Final Empire takes place in a land where eruptions of ash cloud the sky and the Lord Ruler rules over the people as both god and king. Vin is a thief who works for Cayman's crew, and when a scam goes wrong, she is saved by Kelsier, a man and thief intent on overthrowing the Lord Ruler, who also reveals to Vin that she is something special, something called a Mistborn, a person who has access to allomantic powers that could change everything about her life. So Vin joins Kelsier's crew with the promise that he would teach her how to use these powers. He does so, and her part in the scheme is twofold. First, she is to be a power behind the scenes, using those Mistborn powers that he teaches her how to use, as he himself is also a Mistborn. Second, he needs her to infiltrate the nobles' parties and act as a spy. She does this under the alias of Valette. But all the while, she is hounded by the fact that if nobles or any members of the government find out that she is a Ska, one of the race of slaves, she would be tortured and killed. The crew eventually does raise a rebellion. Not everything goes as planned, including a poor choice which leads to most of their army being completely decimated. But eventually, when things do seem to be headed in the right direction and everything seems to be on track, Many of their allies were at that point captured, and Kelsier decided to take a stand. In doing so, he freed his friends, but also died at the hand of the Lord Ruler. Seeing this, the Ska people, remembering the legend that Kelsier was, and still claimed to be, began to rise up against the Lord Ruler. The oppressed people began to rise up against their king. And it was at that moment that Vin decided to attack the Lord Ruler, freeing the city once and for all. With the help of Marsh, Kelsier's brother who had infiltrated the Inquisitors, and Sayes, her loyal friend and steward and guardian, she attacks and kills the Lord Ruler by finding out his secret, that he was not the man who was destined to save the world. I think that sums it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, skipped over many parts, but still, what are you going to do? It's a very long book.
Yeah. I mean, there are lots of characters I had to leave out. There are lots of events I had to leave out, but I mean...
That's the plot.
That's the main plot. I mean, the first and foremost question is, though, given how you stated in your evaluation of the year, I know what this is going to be, but first, general reaction. How did you feel about the book?
Yeah, this was a great book. And actually, interestingly, I mean, so just commenting on that back there, the plot is central to the story. I mean, there's a lot that happens plot-wise.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, you left out a whole lot of characters and character development, which was also central to the story. I mean, I'm just thinking about that now as you're mentioning that.
Mm-hmm.
You described the very basics of the plot, but the characters made it good too.
Oh, the characters carried the entire story.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that I love about the way that Sanderson writes. His people, in all of his stories, his characters are just so well developed, so three-dimensional, they feel so real.
Yeah, even the muscle has character, right? There are brains that, of course, have character, because usually they do in books, I would say. Even if it's not the best kind of character, they have character. And the muscle has character in this book.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are a whole bunch of other roles on the team. There's not just those two roles.
Yeah. When this story was originally being developed, at least from things that I've heard Sanderson talk about, he said that he was originally developing it as basically a fantasy heist.
Yeah, this is very much of a heist book.
In a normal heist movie, in any heist story, there's all the parts. There's the muscle, there's the brains, there's the distraction, there's the spy. There's all these different parts.
Mm-hmm.
And the crew, all the different parts of the crew make up those same stereotypes, those same roles.
So one of the interesting things is we have a coworker at school who likes these books too.
Actually, we have several now.
We have several, that's true. We have one in the tech office, I guess. She's the one I've been talking to.
We have one in the tech office, and then there's a bunch of others who, I'll be fair and say that since I've been at this school, I have slowly introduced the series of books to several people, and they now have read many of these stories because of me, and yeah.
But it was kind of nice for me to bounce some things off her every once in a while, the women in our tech office. And one of the comments I made to her early on was, it's super convenient to have somebody like Vin learning this so that we can learn all of it too. I was like, oh, good. She's going to ask all the good questions because she's learning so that we can learn it too. Super convenient. How else are you going to explain everything? So that was very nice to have her.
Yeah.
But again, she's also not flat either, though. She's got a lot of character too. She's not just placed there so that we can learn. There's a lot of other value in her character.
Mm-hmm. She is not just the normal apprentice stereotype, which is the other side that this story fits into. Is it's a very nice apprentice master story as well as a heist novel.
Let's talk a little bit about the magic.
Yes, let's talk about the magic.
There are two kinds of magic in this story.
Yes.
The Allomancers and the... I'm going to have a hard time. Ferromancers. Is it fair?
It's Ferrochemy, but...
Ferrochemy, right? Ferrochemy. That's what it is. Sorry. Ferrochemists, yeah.
It's the magic that the keepers have, basically, is the best way to put it.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was a little bit of a MacGuffin when he was explaining his magic too. I was like, oh, something's going to happen with this. And also I thought it was funny when they were playing coy that he wasn't going to explain his magic. I'm like, okay, you're playing coy because you're going to explain it. So I'll just wait for it, but it's coming, I'm assuming.
Mm-mm.
You're not going to be playing coy with this for too long. But anyway, so that was kind of funny. But after Sazed explained his magic, it was only like a few more pages where I realized, oh my goodness, the Lord Ruler's a ferrochemist. Like, if you are explaining it in this detail, that means that's got to be what the Lord Ruler has up his sleeve. He must be both an allomancer and a ferrochemist.
I would say that there would have been another reason that they would explain in that detail.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
That would have been if it had been the necessary key component to defeating him.
Which it was, though.
It was, but I'm just saying, like, even if he wasn't a ferrochemist,
using ferrochemistry powers to defeat him that way.
That would be another reason why one would, in this case, have explained it in this detail. It just so happened that you were right.
Well, and here's one of the things, too, that, like, okay, so I don't think they ever... Kelsier was fixated on a specific room in the Lord Ruler's castle.
Yeah. And
they never outright say it at the end, but I think there's only one explanation. That room is where he hid when he was regaining his years. Or it's his hideaway, either way. It's his private room. I don't think there's anything in there.
Yeah, they mentioned that he had to spend the time
regenerating
as an old man to make sure that he could store up age.
Mm-hmm.
They mentioned that, and so I think it's obvious enough that it's not...
It's not called out directly.
It's not called out directly, but I think it's obvious enough.
So Kelsier didn't understand that... Well, Kelsier never made the tie that he was a ferrochemist, for sure.
Yeah.
But Kelsier was wondering, why does he spend a day there every 3 days? And now it's like, oh, because he's storing his age.
Mm-hmm.
Now it makes sense. He's appearing there as an old man so that he can store age.
Yep.
One question I have is something that is talked about throughout a lot of the book and never quite fully explained is the 11th metal. And Vin gets it to work at the end, and she assumes that the 11th metal is the opposite of gold. Wait, does she assume that? No, she just sees that she can see his well, she thinks she's seeing his pasts, right? That's what she believes.
I think she's thinking that she either sees his past or another version of himself that the past could have become into.
Right.
But I think she thinks it's his past.
Right. I think it's actually his future. If it's opposite of gold and you're seeing your past in gold, then that means probably you're seeing his future in...
No. In gold, at least how it's presented here, gold was presenting Vin with her past, but also where she could have gone if a different path had been taken.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
So I think what is being presented there is the past, but where they could have gone if a different path was taken.
But then the opposite gold, the 11th metal, you're seeing his
version of that.
Oh, it's his past.
Yeah.
So it is his past. Because I was wondering if it was just other versions of his future.
At least that's how I've always read it.
Okay. Anyway, that was a little unclear, but not a problem.
Mm-hmm. I will say that in his later books of this series, more is revealed about the different systems of magic in this world. And so some of the things that might be unclear right now might be made more clear in a future book. Mm-hmm. Because I will say one thing about his magic systems is they are very orderly.
Yeah, you can definitely see hints of that now. And I guess I should have said, I did enjoy the magic systems. I thought it was interesting to see it. I thought that it was kind of, I mean, in terms of like superhero books, like there are certain people that have some powers, certain people that have all the powers. That was kind of interesting. Well, halfway through the book, too, I was also assuming that Vin was somehow going to grow to be a stronger version of Kelsier. That we're seeing the 1 in a million person become the champion, which is what happened, but not necessarily because of strength.
Yeah.
because of wits more than strength, which was nice to see too. That it's not just because she had the greatest amount of midichlorians.
I was afraid you were going to go with that.
Sorry. It did seem like she was strong, but not overcomingly so. Definitely not the Lord Ruler's kind of strength.
No.
But I'm curious. I don't think they quite explained all of how he got all of his strength. I have some hints to that, I think, but it wasn't really explained in the book.
More will be explained in future novels.
Sounds good. One of the questions I have, and again, I'm suspending disbelief because it is fantasy, so I'm suspending disbelief.
And I reserve the right to say, more will be revealed in future novels.
Okay, well, are they going to explain how they can be burning chemicals that immediately enter their digestive system? Like, I don't know. Like, to me, it's like they should have to drink it a half an hour before they can use it. But anyway, that, you know, the plot demands that they burn it immediately, so blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. No, they do not explain that.
Okay.
At least not that I remember.
That seems a little bit silly to me that they can be burning it as soon as it's gone down their esophagus. But anyway, we'll just suspend that disbelief a little bit. It doesn't have to enter their system, just has to enter their tummies. Okay, sure. I mean, I think it was surprising to me to have two different magic systems in the book in the first place. Again, because the first one is, Allomancy is fairly orderly.
Yeah.
There are opposites, blah, blah, blah. And of course, ATM didn't fit the pattern, so that was always interesting. And that's why I guess I thought that, oh my goodness, you're introducing a second magic system, and we're going to call it ferrochemistry, and like that's going to be, and like that's why I was like, oh, this is going to be a MacGuffin. Then we're going to use this somehow to finish the book. Like, why do you need two? Oh, you need two to finish the book is what you need. But still, at the same time, it was still orderly and it made sense. So anyway, it was kind of fun.
Yeah, the thing I will say is every single one of the magic systems that he has made in any of his books fall into that pattern. They are very orderly. They are very scientific. You can always explain and know what a magic system is capable of in his books. I think the only one that I ever felt like I didn't understand until much later was in his first novel, which is Elantris. And that one was still orderly, but it's not revealed how it's orderly until the very end. But I digress.
One of the things I liked, especially about ferrochemistry, is the amount of discipline it takes. Like, I like that, you know, Sazed pretty much shuffled around so that he could be saving up speed, or he wore glasses a lot of the time so that he'd be saving up eyesight, or he made himself a little bit weaker all the time so that he could be saving up strength. Kind of interesting. As somebody who saves in life, you know, like, oh, that makes sense. You would always make yourself slightly weaker than regular so that you can be saving up for the time you need a lot of strength.
Yeah.
That's kind of a neat idea. Potentially being slightly older for the time you need to be really young. So anyway, it's kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, well, he did say, however, that many people did not view age as a really big one because
it all evens out.
It all evens out, and the only real reason to use it then would be for a disguise. The fact that everything has that order, has that system, is one of the things that I really just love that about this world in specific, that because you know of the problems in this world and you know what exactly the different magic systems can solve using that magic because it's explained. It's basically making it so that you don't have the wizard showing up saying, "You shall not pass," and then everything works out. Instead, you know what the magic is capable of.
Yeah. Let's go into the caste system and the altruistic heist, right?
All right.
I loved the ignorance of the nobility. Especially, so Elend is one of the main characters of the nobility that we meet. I mean, there are other more prominent characters, I guess, but he's the main character in the book of the nobility that we're meeting. And I love how he's like, aren't the Ska the same? Like, are they not different? Like, of course they're not different. Of course it's a caste system. Well, I guess I'm assuming that they're not different. I'm assuming that it's just straight, like, we're going to call these people over here nobility, and we're going to call these people over here slaves. And we're just going to call it that and leave it that, and nobody's going to know the difference. But I just love did you know they're the same? Like, ay. Of course they are.
Did you know they can think?
It was pretty funny.
Oh, yeah.
I think one of the things that made me really like the book, of course, was the heist. Now, I was trying to think, if the future books don't have as much of a heist in them, are they still going to be interesting? And I think so. I don't think the heist was the sole thing that made up the book. I mean, and we've talked about the magic already, and I think the orderly magic made it a fun thing. And like you said, actually, you could tell how they can get out of these situations by using their magic. Maybe you didn't have the exact answer, but you could see that, yes, this situation is either winnable or going to be close because of the level of magic that they have. But anyway, yeah, the altruistic heist is an interesting thing. And I love the back and forth they do with, is Kelsier crazy or is he actually doing the best he can to get this to work? And I love that back and forth and back and forth. And I love how he continues to appeal to them saying, look, you may believe I'm crazy, but you still believe in the idea. And they're like, yeah, okay, you're going to do some things crazy, but we're going to get through this together. So I don't know. I thought that was fun. Seeing him as a leader and seeing him as the person moving all the chess pieces was kind of interesting.
How did you feel about the reveal that he basically was planning on becoming a sacrifice?
Yeah, becoming the martyr.
Yeah.
In terms of the story, I was a little disappointed that one of the main characters died early on. And in some ways, I think I was a little disappointed too, because I hadn't put that much faith that he was thinking that even that far ahead. I mean, I knew he was always thinking ahead, but he was thinking that far ahead. That's interesting. I think, if anything, that was one of the more disappointing parts in the story. But it made sense. That was the other thing.
Yeah.
I could see how it completely explained a whole bunch of things. It wasn't out there.
Yeah, I felt like it made sense because for me, given Seize's religious conversations with everyone and talking about like, okay, well, what makes belief? And the fact that Kelsier had been so hung up on faith and belief, and basically he had set himself up to be almost a messiah figure throughout the entire book. He had set himself up for that so that it pointed to that when he did this sacrifice, everything else would just fall like dominoes. So it makes sense to me that he did that. Also, the other side of things that makes sense why he would do that is the fact that if you consider that this was his plan before he met Vin, I mean, imagine he had a couple of years ago gotten out of this situation where he believed his wife betrayed him and then she died in his place. And then how would a person want to continue living after that? So if you know that you can set in motion the things to make the world a better place by dying, that might be the kind of mindset you would have to be in.
That's a good point.
At least that's how I've read it.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I think I did expect him to last longer or do something more against the Lord Ruler. I think I was a little bit disappointed with how quick he died with the Lord Ruler.
I will say that I was hoping that that scene, when I first read it, I was hoping that that scene, he would do something.
Right.
But he stood there. And I mean, Vin also says basically the same thing. He should have done something, but he didn't. And that's what actually makes her kind of spiral at that point.
Right, yeah.
Until it's revealed that, oh no, he had it all planned. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. After the reveal of his death, everything flowed boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, this is why all these pieces are in place.
And I think that's part of the thing with any good heist story is a good heist story has all the pieces lined up. And then when the actual heist happens, you've set all the pieces up and you know that there's one piece that's missing. So, I mean, I'm just thinking of all the good heist movies that we've seen in the past. So you see it getting set up, and then when the final piece is pushed over, and you suddenly realize, oh, that was the piece that was missing. I think that's what makes this really cool. I will say one of the nice things that I always liked was the fact that, like, the first half of the book, everything seems to be going just according to plan. And then the army decides to go and have a test battle.
Yeah. I thought that there was a lot of great character points there. There was definitely the bit we needed to learn about a pewter drag. That was kind of fun.
Yep.
And then there's Vin having an effect on Kelsier to not jump and sacrifice. This must have been after her fight with the Inquisitor, right? We're not invincible. You can't go and fight there.
Yes, that was after the initial Inquisitor fight.
Right. Yeah, they were already dead, which played like, oh yes, of course the rebellion leader would try this. Of course he would, because he would have gotten full of himself and do this. It made complete sense. For somebody like Kelsier who could think ahead so much, it is too bad that he didn't actually think through that one. But again, he had rules in place, like nobody leaves the compound. So I guess it probably was out of his scope that this would actually be done.
Yeah.
That they would do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, from that point, the book really moved, right? Because then we're having Lord Renew be captured, which is also a whole nother interesting thing.
Yeah.
Lord Renew, but...
Yeah, you'll find out more in future books.
Second book. Well, actually, one question is, so did the creature that played Lord Renew actually get a hold of Kelsier's bones, or no?
Well, the thing that they said was they are able to become anything whose flesh and bones they have eaten.
They've eaten something.
And he did have Kelsier's face, and so...
So he got it, okay. Because that was a little bit unclear. I was like, that was part of the deal. He was promised Kelsier's bones, right?
It alludes to, but doesn't say straight out, but yeah, he ate Kelsier.
Interesting. Yeah, I very much enjoyed it.
Which I'm going to state one small thing that is a discussion point for future books, mostly because this is something that Vin will have to deal with in future books. Remember that there is still a relationship with former Renew and Vin. How do you think she feels about the creature who ate Kelsier?
Let's hint a little bit in this. She's disgusted by it. At the end, she doesn't want anything to do with him, even though that's part of the deal, I guess. Part of the deal is that since most of Kelsier's stuff is passed to Vin, that she also inherits this creature as alongside. And at the moment, she doesn't want him. And I definitely see where she's coming from, but I do agree with CZ and whoever else was talking to her at the time.
It was Dox.
Dox, okay. Saying that, no, this guy's pretty valuable. You want to keep him around.
Yep.
I'm curious to see what will happen there, because she doesn't explicitly say that she's dismissed the creature at the end of the book, so I'm curious as to what will happen.
Yep. You'll find out.
I definitely see her side, but man, there are magics. Some of these magics are in short supply because of the Lord Ruler, apparently, so.
Some of the magics are also in short supply because of what Kelsier did.
Yeah, that's true too.
I will say I was originally pretty hesitant about having you read this because I know that sci-fi is more in your wheelhouse normally and fantasy not as much.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it's because the fantasy and the heist together brought it forward. But in some ways, the fantasy in this one is science fiction-y.
That's why I was confident that this would be fine, is because the fantasy has a hardness to the magic system. I mean, you know of soft sci-fi and hard sci-fi, where hard sci-fi is like everything is very tied to the science. This feels like a hard magic system kind of idea, where the magic system is almost leaning into that hard sci-fi kind of feel.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, this is on the same level as a well-told time travel story, right?
Yeah.
The science in this story is as deep as that. Like, if you can arrange a good time travel story, you've arranged a similar level to this magic system. So yeah, the belief stretching was not in the magic. To me, it was only in the fact that they could use their metals as soon as they put them in their mouths. Like, oh, that's a little... It doesn't have to enter your body or something. Anyway.
Once it's inside the body...
It's okay. Don't explain it.
I don't know.
Let's let the belief suspended be okay.
Yeah.
Lots of things we're not mentioning. I feel like we're not scratching the surface of this book, really.
We're not, because, I mean, there's the fact that each character has so much depth. You mentioned Ham.
Yeah, I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
Especially because he was a questioning thug. He plays a thug, but he's got a family, and he's questioning things, and yeah, he was great.
He basically recognized a lot of things about the world and just would ask those questions and have that depth. Even Breeze, who came off as an overly flippant, is the best way to put it, I think.
Pompous,
yeah. Has his own reasons for doing what he does and has a lot of depth as a character. And that's the thing, is each character has depth and reason. I think the characters that I felt that were the least deep, I guess is the way to put it, would be the nobility. And that's because, if anything, the characters never really got to know much of them outside of Elend.
Yeah, everyone that we met was playing the stereotypical role, Elend's father.
Yeah.
All the partygoers.
I mean, even in that, some of that might be the fact that we're seeing this through Vin's eyes. But some of that might also be because they are not as important to the story. We didn't have time to fully develop all of their intricacies in what was a novel, because otherwise we would be having multiple novels just for this one story. When we have 2 more just in this series, and then a second Mistborn series.
Yeah. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I liked the characters. I do wish we could probably talk about all of them, but that would be long. I liked the solution. I think it was a bit convenient that Marsh was still around at the end. But again, I love his comment, which I guess means we're going to learn more later. It's a very messy process to make an Inquisitor.
Yeah, it is a very messy process, and they do reveal more about that.
Well, I mean, people with spikes in their eyes, quite interesting. I do wish he had asked a little bit more about how he actually sees. Too bad it didn't go further into that.
They alluded to it. It's the idea where
he sees the outline of the metals they have on them.
Yeah.
He basically sees them as outlines.
But, I mean, it's the same idea of if you can sense that level of metals in people, I mean, the metals in somebody's blood, the metals in what they've eaten, all that sort of stuff. That's the level of metals that he's talking about that he can see. Which is why when she threw up the pewter in front of one of the Inquisitors, it blinded him. Because if he's seeing nothing but like where the metals are, then you basically have a wall of metal right in front of you then.
Interesting. I did like some other plot points, like the pewter drag they did. I liked Vin's back and forth on whether she likes being nobility or likes being a thief. I liked that back and forth. I thought Sazed was a great character.
Yes.
Even Dachshund is quite fun too. I wish there was more on many of them. Even more on the Soother. What was his name again?
Breeze,
yeah. Like, they did a lot on him. Oh, well, I don't know if a lot, but they did a bunch on him. But I thought it would have been... I think they just didn't talk about it, but I guess she had lessons with Breeze, and they just didn't mention it too much. But I wish they had gone over that more. Just like we heard the talk with Marsh and Vin about how to use copper properly, I would have liked to have heard the discussion that she had with Breeze about how to use soothing properly.
So for that one, that was when she was in the meeting.
Yeah. Well, she just watches him, right?
She was watching him, but what is mentioned is the fact that he's talking through what he's doing the entire time, and he was actually also doing the same thing to her. So when he would soothe away their fear, for example, he would do the same thing to her so she could feel it. So that was how they did it for Breeze. During the speech, he would be soothing the entire room, and he would do these things and then also do them to Vin so she would feel the soothing on her emotions.
Yep, I really enjoyed it. I wish we could talk more, but we're just going to keep on talking. Actually, I am one of the things I am curious about, and I forget if I was mentioning this to you or to our colleague, but I am very curious because the Lord Ruler definitely hints at it, that he was holding things together. And I think one of the questions I still have is, who was making the ash fall? There's got to be an answer to this because, again, they've talked so much about green plants And apparently they haven't brought green plants back by the end of the book today. So there's going to have to be more discussion on that topic. So I am very curious as to what that is. And I'm assuming that's explained in a future book because too many hints have been dropped not to answer that question.
It is indeed answered in future books.
Mm-hmm. So I am curious as to what the Lord Ruler was holding back and who was causing the ash. Is it the Lord Ruler causing the ash or whatever this big bad thing they're worried about is causing the ash? I would like to know.
I'll assign to you book 2 at another point. I'll give you a short break. Maybe throw another book in between, but we'll come back to this soon. Like I said, it's a great story. I'm thrilled that you loved it.
Good. I am curious. One final point.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little bit disappointed in the end. Not because the end was bad. I thought the end was fine. But I thought it was kind of funny to have this whole heist book end with trade agreements. Sorry, not trade agreements. It's lawmaking, right? Like, revolution, and we're going to have lawmaking. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to have new laws. And again, they didn't focus on it too much. So, to Brandon Sanderson's credit, the lawmaking is happening in the background, which is good. But I just thought it was kind of build, exciting climax, and okay, we got to drop some new laws. But again, if the heist plot had completely worked out positively, and we had Kelsier and everyone, and celebration, it wouldn't have been as good of a book. So
yeah,
to have the remaining people be pondering the cost of their revolution was good. So I don't know. It can't be happy at the end. There has to be a cost to revolution, and there was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just thought it was I'm pleased with it. I don't think it could have been any better. But I was noticing that it walked a fine line of being a lot worse. And it walked the line well. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That if he had done one thing slightly imbalanced, it could have made the book a lot worse than it was, and it was fantastic.
All right, Ryan, what's next? What do we have next time?
Next time on My Hill to Die On, we are going to be inviting some friends of ours to play a game with us. This is going to be slightly different from some of the other games that we've played. We are basically going to challenge each other to trivia of fandoms.
Mm-hmm.
So it is going to be an opportunity for us to all prove who is the biggest nerd.
Yep. I hope we're answering other questions too.
Well, no, I'm just saying that by answering those questions, you're going to find out that truth.
Oh, that's true.
And I think the real answer to that question will probably be the guy who's writing all the questions.
Exactly. All of those plays in the games are going to be the losers, pretty much.
But yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. We will have some guests, some returning, and some potentially new.
It'll be fun. Is this the game where the only way to win is not to play at all?
Good night. What is that a reference to?
War games.
War games, that's right. I was trying to remember. I was like, I know that reference. Now that the show is ended, the discussion can continue with us through Reddit at r/myhilltodieon, or by contacting us through Twitter at myhilltodieon. Or you can reach us by an email, which is, to no one's surprise, myhilltodieon@gmail.com. And finally, we upload all of our episodes to our YouTube channel, which, say it with me now, folks, is My Hill to Die On. Have a good night.
So you know, I just posted our episode 30. It is now up.
Okay. So all the people chomping at the bit will now know when we record based on when this one posts.
Yep. We are in an interesting situation where we're posting 2 episodes ago. We don't always post. Usually we're not 2 episodes behind like this.
Yeah, usually we're better than this, but I blame the end of the year.
Yeah.
By the way, did you listen to the new Cortex with the themes?
I did.
Yeah, I thought that was a good episode.
Yeah, it was. It's pretty amazing that they can talk about themes for 2.5 hours.
Well, I think part of it is the fact that they really have invested a lot of time and energy into the idea of themes.
Yeah, and they're filling out their journal. Both, at least Mike is filling out his journal all the time. And even if Gray isn't filling out his theme journal, he's doing something similar.
Yeah.
In mental effort, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
But I did find it very interesting to hear about several things that they said.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the statement that Gray made about, I've known me long enough that I need a reason to leave my house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I definitely felt a kindred spirit in that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I recognize that I am an introvert, but I also enjoy being around people every once in a while. But I need a reason to go out. If it's the me saying, I should go out, nothing's going to happen.
Mm.
I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to do anything. But if I have a reason, if I have an excuse, it gives me a reason to go out. Alrighty. Now, where were we?
I think we're finished. Look at that. 2020, what a year. We've actually had some good things.
We've had a decent year, if you ignore the massive pandemic.
Right. We're ignoring the pandemic and any political things. And it's been a good year. Mm-hmm.
Hey, whoa. There was a good thing that happened politically this year. I don't know what you're talking about. I still considered making that my event of the year, by the way. That he got voted out.
All right. Let me say it differently so we can edit this properly. Oh, what did I say now? Yeah, if you ignore the pandemic, it was a good year. Good. Skip all the political stuff.
Oh, come on. We can keep politics in this. I'm sure somebody would love my snarky comments about politics.
It's called On the Nature of Daylight, and it's the song that's played heavily in the movie. Oh, goodness. We talked about it on the podcast. The one where the aliens come down in ships. In the movie, anyway, not in the book.
That's in, my brain is blanking.
Goodness, I can just look it up in the history. I have the history spreadsheet up. But goodness, it starts with an A.
Who's going to find it first? Who's going to find it first?
A Story of Your Life, and the movie is called Arrival.
Arrival.
The movie Arrival. The big song that's in the movie Arrival. It's featured heavily in that movie.
All right, now, the real question is, how many times did I say basically tonight?
I never hear them.
I never hear them either, but when I was listening to the podcast I was editing, there were a lot. The discussion can continue with us through Reddit at Clearly, it's way too late.